Is this on? It's on. Hi, everyone. Going to ask you to quiet down and take your seat if you have one. I want to welcome you to the future of manufacturing, the AI era. It's going to be a great event. I'm Courtenay Brown. I co-write the Axios macro newsletter. I'm a global economics reporter. So I love being at Davos. This is my jam. If you haven't subscribed to my newsletter yet, you can at axios.com/newsletters. I want to thank you all so much again for being here. There's so much happening here over the next few days. But to kick things off, we have a great guest. The Rio Tinto CEO, Jakob Stausholm, is here with me. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, so Davos is great because you can run into a lot of people, but what I've learned over the years that I've been here is chief executives come to make a deal. And I want to know, are you here to make a deal?
Absolutely.
I mean, what I'm talking about for the audience, to be clear. Yeah.
There's barely any mining and processing companies who is having more business development. It's typically organic growth, and I meet a lot of stakeholders from countries, etc. It takes a long time. It starts with geology, you have a project, how is it being received in a country, etc. And that's actually, you asked me last year, I was here at 55 bilateral meetings. That's what Davos is about for me. It's a lot about, you have a chance here to meet people from all over the world. It's much more efficient than traveling around to every single country. So yes, I'm absolutely here for business development.
So last week there was some reporting, some chatter that there might be a combination between you and Glencore. Those talks started back in 2014. Nothing happened before you were CEO. So are those talks active now? And if not, why not?
So I trust that's ChatGPT who recommends you to ask that question based upon...
That's the AI angle.
And here's the thing, it's quite interesting, isn't it? Because we, like any other half-smart company, have a policy of never commenting upon rumor, because if you start denying things that doesn't happen, then suddenly one day you're being asked a question which might actually be true and you don't deny it, and then people know it's right. So therefore, rumors are rumors, and I can't comment on rumors.
Okay. Let me ask it this way. Before we start to... No, it's a good question. Before we talk about AI and manufacturing, let me just ask it this way. What is your outlook on consolidation in the mining industry?
Well, it is an industry that is very fragmented, and you see consolidation. We have contributed a lot to consolidation over the last 12 months because we have gone from kind of looking quite a lot at lithium to suddenly become one of the top 3 lithium producers in the world by acquiring Arcadium Lithium. Lithium is a good example. It's a new industry. You need to, right now you have seen massive growth, and you're still going to have 5-6 times more lithium 10, 15 years from now. It's mainly been done by a number of startup companies, and they cannot really go through the waves. One day lithium cost $80,000 per ton, and another day it cost $8,000. So that's where we kick in with our technical expertise and our ability to think long term. So consolidation is happening, not everywhere, but in, for example, the lithium industry.
Got it. Can you talk about how Rio Tinto is incorporating AI technology into its business? How is it helping, or not, making your operations more efficient?
I'm sure there are many in this room who knows much more about AI than I do. And I actually think one of the important things is to be a little bit humble about it, because I don't think the world really have seen the potential of it yet. So it's a lot about experimenting. But there are a couple of areas. If you think about where mining starts, we are kind of like as opposite to the tech industry that develops the AI. We are a very physical company. But it starts with Mother Earth, it starts with geology. It's a lot of data, and already now our exploration teams are able to use generative AI models to much better use new information compared with old information. Suddenly, when you normally have information overflow, it also helps in our operations. We are not a leader in software for sure, but we are a leader in industrial automation. We got the largest robots on the planet. We run 2.5 kilometers trains without any people on it. We run the world's leading biggest fleet of unmanned trucks, and that basically gives you a lot of data. And we have not been good enough at using the data. So there's huge potential. I'll give you one example. We work with Palantir on how we run our underground mine in Mongolia, and it's what you call a block cave, and you basically need to understand the seismics of the rocks everywhere. And we were just having overload of information. Learning to extract the right data, use it in a structured way, enables people to simply run the mine much better.
We were having a heated discussion last night, myself and my colleagues at Axios, at dinner about, selfishly, will my job still be around in a few years given AI? But it evolved into a debate about what the future of workers are in this era where AI plays a bigger and bigger role. And I'm curious, what does that look like at Rio Tinto? Has automation, for instance, the robots you talk about, has that replaced workers?
Well, you want to automate things and you want to make things more efficient. And I think the whole thing about how do we get productivity is that we keep on finding things that are not useful to be done by humans. And then we at the same time experience how unique we are as humans and find out where is it we really add value. I think you're safe in your job. I mean, you already pushed me very, very hard with your questionings, etc.
Thank you.
So
Where's my boss? He already said.
That is probably the value added in such situations. And I think we're learning the same thing. Running a big company, leadership is not easy. And leadership is not about spreadsheets and figuring out what solutions are. It's actually the interactions between human beings and the empathy that people have. And we are a long way away from that in AI, in my view.
Okay. So does this mean that some of the technology that you're incorporating, does that open up other opportunities for workers? And I guess you would have to upskill them, right? You would have to teach them to do something else. Is that what's happening at Rio Tinto?
Absolutely. And what you really want, you want to create an environment where you unlock the full curiosity of people. You don't want people to just act like robots, like operators saying, do this, do that. That's not what you want. You want to have them the ones who are best at operating the plants, that they are really thinking through and saying, hey, this doesn't work, maybe we could do it like this, etc. So you can actually unlock a lot of creativity in an organization, and everything that can be automated should be automated.
Is there anything you're doing that has helped with worker safety in terms of allowing AI or automation to step in and do something that a worker could do, but perhaps it's not so safe for them to do so as far as manufacturing is concerned?
It's more automation than AI, to be quite frank, but you are really trying to automate, and sometimes it's not super efficient to automate, but you just say, I really don't want to have people very close to this furnace because it's 1800 degrees, and so we do a lot of that automation, and as soon as you have the automation in, you can then use the software to further optimize the automated part.
Got it. Okay. So are you measuring at all whether your operations are becoming more productive? Is there some sort of way that you're thinking about testing AI here and really seeing if it's worth it?
Well, I ask the question all the time. I'm looking here to my right where my chief technology officer is standing, and he gets that question from me all the time, and he always says yes, so we do so, yeah.
Are you telling the truth? He nods, he says yes. Okay, got it. Can you take us maybe 15 years into the future, you're a young man, so you're still CEO of Rio Tinto. Do you have more workers than you do now, or do you have fewer workers than you do now?
Well, first of all, some people might think about mining and processing as a dying industry because it's old. We're 152 years old. But if you try to visualize the future, it's actually a very physical future. If we want to have a sustainable way to have 8 billion growing to even more living on this planet, you need to do a number of things, such as, for example, just the energy transition. It will require a lot more materials of aluminium, of copper, of lithium, and you need to recycle things much more. We are also into recycling. So the starting point is 15 years from now, we are a much bigger company. But we will also be more efficient, and you could say every site will have less people per site, but we will be a bigger company. So net, we might be a little bit bigger in terms of number of staff.
Okay, so on a site-by-site basis, fewer workers, but in aggregate, you think there will be more workers?
I mean, if you look at the latest manufacturing in China, it's unbelievable how efficient it is, and how few workers you have on the shop floor. That is the competition.
What have you learned from looking at competition like that? Anything that you can apply to your own company?
Oh, we're learning every day.
Yeah. Okay. I do want to talk about China because there is something very interesting happening in the global economy. I'm sure many of the people in the audience realize this is underway, but the 2010s were about a lack of demand. There was not enough demand for all of the things that the world was producing. The 2020s so far look so different. We don't have a demand problem. We have a supply problem, not enough supply. How do you think about that in terms of copper, for instance, in terms of demand for the things that you're mining for around the world?
Yeah. So there's enough material in the world. That's not the issue. The issue is the poor, the lower grade you go for, the more expensive it is to extract. And therefore, high quality, for example, copper resources are not easy to get access to, and they will be in much demand because there will be a lot more demand for copper in the time to come. And therefore, I feel a company like Rio Tinto, we are one of the world's largest. We have a lot of expertise. We have a duty of really trying to develop these things, on top of also having recyclable business. But the reality is you need a bigger stock in the world of both copper, aluminium, and lithium. You don't have enough to recycle and meet the demands. Got it.
So this, it sounds like you're saying the things that we need, it's out there. It's just expensive to access. So, I mean, how do you deal with a problem like that? Is there a role for AI there?
There is, but actually it reminds me of your earlier question. It starts with a very human element. Many people can rationally accept that we need to do mining, but not everyone can accept that it happens in their backyard. So it really starts with winning hearts and minds with governments and local communities and saying this project is actually a mutual interest. So that's the human part. And then the technical part, and I look over here at it starts with the exploration department, of course, and really identifying the best opportunities that needs to be developed.
Oh, so a robot can't do that now, as far as winning hearts and minds.
No, but AI can make our explorers much more efficient, and we would be able to see things we might not have seen in the past.
Something interesting about Rio Tinto is that I've asked you so far about how you all are incorporating AI. We talked about automation internally for your own operations, but you kind of play a role in AI outside of your company, right? I mean, all of these data centers that we're going to need to power AI, they need the materials that you're mining for. Yeah. So how do you think about that in terms of demand over the next few years?
But that's why I keep on saying I believe a company like Rio Tinto, we are opportunity rich because there is a lot of demand. And if any of you, let me just make one little announcement. If there's a book I would recommend you to read, it's called Materials World. And it's quite interesting to just read what is the supply chain for getting a microchip. It's astonishing how long and how complicated and what it goes through, etc. And so it goes with many materials.
What was the book? Because I feel like I saw a few people starting to write it down. You want to say it again?
Material World.
Material World. Got it. I imagine...
Ed Conway is the author.
Okay. We're going to be testing you guys on that book next year, so make sure you read it. I'm so glad you brought up supply chains because I think the pandemic perhaps changed the way chief executives and the people who report to them think about supply chains. Is that the case for you? How has your thinking changed on the supply chains?
Well, the whole world has learned a lot. It's interesting, though. Asia have always had mental mindset of having long-term supply chains in place. That was how we developed our business with Japan, South Korea, and also China. Whereas the West have always said, well, we rely on the market, which is an amazing strategy until it's not. And that was what we learned during COVID.
Sorry. So the reason I was so excited to speak to you is because you really have an understanding of what's happening with the global economy, your company, that is. You're here in Davos this year. How does the global economic backdrop different this year than in years past?
Thank you. Well, we see a part of it. We see the physical moves, and what is very clear is that China is still growing quite significantly. They might have some challenges on property, but their manufacturing base is growing. We can see how the flow of materials going into China. So China is growing well. The US is growing well. Europe is struggling, and the global south have certainly certain areas are growing very strongly. So we are facing, we can read about the world is in a horrible spot, and it is horrible. We have wars and things like that. But net, the world is growing.
So one of the big stories I thought of 24 was kind of a slowdown in China's economy. But you sound like you're saying perhaps they're not growing as quickly as they were before, but their manufacturing base is thriving.
But given the size of the economy, if you grow by 5%, that's a lot.
Yeah.
It's many decades ago that Europe has had such growth.
We've gone so long without mentioning Trump, and I think we've reached the point where we have to bring up Trump just because I'm curious what tariffs, if they are applied as widely and aggressively as President-elect Trump, soon to be President Trump later today, says. Does that have an impact on Rio Tinto, and if so, how?
Yeah, for sure. I don't speculate too much on the things. I mean, we in Rio Tinto, we need to understand politics, but we don't have a view on politics in that regard, because ultimately democracies select their leaders, and we work with the elected governments in different countries. Last time President Trump was in office, it actually worked out quite well for us in that regard, and decent agreements was made in place between Canada and the US, and because the US industry relies upon our aluminium from Canada, etc. So I think common sense will prevail.
I am going to push you here a little bit because you mentioned that deal between the US and Canada and Mexico that happened under Trump 1.0. But here we are, and it seems like that deal has fallen apart because Trump is threatening tariffs again on Canada and Mexico. So how can you trust any deal that he puts in place will actually stick around?
Well, as far as I know, he's only president from tomorrow, and he has been president for 4 years, and we progressed a lot of business agenda in his first stint as president. So I'm not sure I understand your question.
Okay. So the deal that he put in place, then you feel like that has benefited you as a business, and
Well, I think it's been for the benefit of the US and Canada.
how's business in Greenland?
I happen to be a Danish citizen, yes. But you know, I mean, we have actually been exploring on Greenland for 15 years, and there are some minerals. But we really couldn't see it being very economic because I happen to have been to Greenland, and there's not a single road between two cities on that place. Everything has to be airborne. The logistic cost up there is enormous. So be my guest for some of my competitors who wants to go to Greenland.
You mentioned something about having 55 bilateral meetings. Was that last year? How many do you have this year?
Probably less. I was a bit tired, I have to admit.
Okay, so the fact that you have fewer meetings, that shouldn't be taken as some sort of economic indicator. You want to chill a little bit more this year, it sounds like.
I would like to get out on cross-country skis 1 or 2 mornings.
Okay. That's better to do not before Davos, but after the World Economic Forum ends?
Probably 2, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining Axios. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you.
Stick around for a word from our sponsor.
Hello, the conversation continues. A little rush for the exits right now. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Nicholas Johnson. I'm the publisher of Axios. It is great to be back here in Switzerland. I dusted my Davos vest off again. We're very grateful for our partners who have helped make this possible. If people could grab seats up here in the front. We're very grateful for our supporters who make everything this week possible. Very happy to be at Qualcomm House. And huge thanks to Gecko Robotics for supporting this conversation. And so as folks grab your seats, come on, don't make me shout over you like a boisterous American. I'm happy to welcome up to the stage Gecko's CEO and co-founder Jake Glusari. And Jake, welcome back to the Axios stage.
Thanks, Nick.
Hold on, we're going to get started right now. People... There's a lot of... Well, we're going to try and share the stage here a little bit. There's nothing more networking than handing out a business card before you sit down on stage at Davos. Jake, good to see you again.
Good to see you, Nick.
It's been a year. We are talking industry and manufacturing, huge priority for the new administration in Washington. A big topic for you is robotics and AI. Put these two things together, manufacturing and robotics.
Yeah, okay, great. So one thing I'd like to say is that, look, I've been at the sites. I've even been at the sites of some of the mining companies in this room, the metal companies in this room. The thing I have to say is that I've seen the actual impact of AI at a lot of these facilities. And I think what is very true is that there's a lot of benefit in genuflecting the impact of artificial intelligence across the physical heavy industries. Obviously, there's a huge benefit as relates to the stock prices of these companies. And so the more you can talk about it, the more you can try to apply multiples that you see from technology companies. The real big problem is that the underlying data sets that exist are either really hard to integrate into existing architecture.
And this is figuring out how to apply this kind of stuff, the data that underlies the robot.
It's not just that, Nick. It's not just figuring out how to apply, but also, it's more importantly, understanding that the fidelity and the information and data sets that drive a lot of the infrastructure with artificial intelligence just simply does not exist. And so I think one thing that's super important for all of us to understand is that artificial intelligence is worthless, and actually worse, can drive horrible results that can impact both safety and an environment if you aren't feeding it good data. So the question that we like to ask is, where's the beef? Right? It's like, where is the underlying data sets that are driving the big impacts and decisions at these companies? And in the physical world, the data I'm sorry to say, just simply doesn't exist.
I mean, we talk about this all the time as far as, bringing AI into the real world, right? Where so much of it operates in this land of mystery and make-believe. And I feel like the data sets you're talking about here are how to bring the implementation of AI into the physical space where we live, to making it real. Talk about a little bit sort of like bridging that gap, right?
Yeah, so I think the most impactful things I've seen artificial intelligence companies do is more to do with the IT or ERP sides of businesses. That's where a lot of the data sets are that these artificial intelligence companies are really great and experts in. But that doesn't actually affect environment. That doesn't affect efficiency and productivity at these facilities. And the information and data and the architecture, that's where you have to actually reimagine the way that you build these the AI infrastructure that powers the most important functions at these facilities. And so that's my approach. You have to completely reinvent the way that you are ingesting information and data, because it's not good. It's built off the backs of people who are collecting data by hand and then manually inputting it into systems and architecture that were most likely built about 20 years ago.
I mean, then there's a better way to do this. I know this because I've been to your factory and I've seen it. Talk a little bit about how you physically do that. How do you bring that AI into the real world?
So look, it's the fact of the matter is that there's so much information and data out there that is that's fundamentally has low fidelity and is wrong. And so you have to actually go out into the physical world using sensors like acoustic sensors, visual sensors, LiDARs, and you have to collect all this information and data, process it using artificial intelligence and machine learning. And then when we talk about AI, we talk about a lot as it relates to how does it help me maybe like look up a better recipe for a food. That's not what we're talking about here. Artificial intelligence should actually process and clean information and data so that it can feed actionable insights at the facilities. Insights that actually help you figure out how to operate a plant or mining, an extraction or refining at a mining facility way more efficiently. That reduces the potential for catastrophic failures. And so robots collect information that never existed before in the physical realm and then transmits them and processes them into a realm of bits.
Go a little bit deeper on that. Who is figuring this out, and how are like the real world applications of these kinds of things? Like, who's at the forefront of this? I mean, I know you guys are pretty clever, but who else are you working with who is figuring this kind of stuff out?
So, well, I guess we're on I guess Axios for breaking news. Look, we're working with Jakob and I were just talking about this. We're working with one of Jakob's most important facilities in the U.S., implementing this reconstruction of how we are building and utilizing artificial intelligence at one of the largest mines in the world. And we're doing that by implementing robotics to collect information and data, not just our robots, but robots from across the industries. And it's all incorporated inside of a central data platform that's built from robotics out. It's an operating platform that helps you understand and rebuild your entire facility, all of your assets, inside of one platform that's leveraging robotic data as well as operating data from the facility. Now, you have to combine those two. We talk about the impact of AI, but the problem is you typically don't see the realization of the impact of artificial intelligence because you just don't know how that affects my physical world. If you can understand the health of the physical world, then you can implement operational efficiencies that can drive better decisions that reduce downtimes, explosions, kill people, which all impact both the efficiencies and the safety and the environment. And
it just all keeps coming back to that same important point about, do you have valid data from the physical world? You can't guess on this stuff.
Yeah, look, I mean, artificial intelligence companies or SaaS companies are dying. They will become extinct. The reason is, if you do not have high fidelity data, what worth are you in a world where artificial intelligence is coding for you? It's very important to understand this. And investors are turning and understanding this entirely. This is why this year has been described the year of the robot. It's because those that understand and own the highest fidelity data will become the companies that dominate these sectors, that actually drive meaningful impact in the physical realm, in the physical world. And as Jakob just described about Rio Tinto, the physical world is becoming more important. And I estimate that the real big impacts, and we've talked about how much more mining, how many more people are going to be involved in a company like Rio Tinto doing mining. Look, I'm telling you, there's going to be an explosion in the amount of onshoring in the U.S., but in general, the amounts of physical manufacturing, mining, these like heavy, boring industries. There's going to be an explosion of growth. GDP is going to be exploding in terms of how much and how fast we are able to grow GDP because of all these innovations, whether they're electric vehicles or artificial intelligence and AI infrastructure. There's going to be an explosion of growth. That's very exciting, but it means that we have to figure out how to make humans have a higher return on their time. And robotics are an incredible way to do this while also keeping them safe.
So, like, as a human, let's talk a little bit more about the human element of this. How does that become more complementary? Like, how do you think about robots and AI serving as a tool for workers as opposed to just completely displacing workers? Or how does that relationship work?
Look, the AI companies that you see in the streets are building their AI infrastructure off of folks that are risking their lives to gather physical world data. Look, I built this company because I heard a story inside of a power plant of a human falling and dying on hanging off of a rope 100 feet up in the air, trying to capture acoustic data to determine the material integrity of a boiler, which is something that makes power. That guy died.
You should not be sending humans into that job.
Yeah, shouldn't be sending humans. People die, and also they're not solving the problem. The data set is horrible, and you just can't build foundational models that way. So why should we all believe that AI companies are actually going to create impact for us if they're building their the foundational models off of guys on ropes, collecting data by hand?
I mean, these are the stories you've told me. You hanged on the side of a chimney with a rope, and you have a little ball peen hammer, and you tap it every 5 inches to try and get some kind of data. You should probably send a robot up there.
Yeah, well, it infuriates me when I talk to CEOs of really big companies, whether they're in the metals or mining or government or whatever. The thing I just get frustrated with is just there's such a huge gap as it relates to what is the reality on the ground. Look, I've worn steel-toe boots, hard hats, and I build robots and artificial intelligence. But I understand how to refine minerals. I understand how a refinery works. I understand what a dry dock looks like, and all the things that go into ensuring that we are more productive, that we're safer, that we're getting our military vessels out to patrol borders, keep things safe. And I think what's so important to understand is that when you're living in a world where like 1 or 2% growth and not losing your job is your incentive, that is a horrible way for you to drive innovation. Why should we all expect that those leaders are going to be making huge changes in the way their business operates? And this is why it's so important to understand the ground truth. And this is where the conversation always leads. Look, I get in trouble a lot when I talk to CEOs and talk this way, but the truth matters a lot. And I'm less interested in someone's like warm, fuzzy feelings about me. I'm more interested in how do we actually drive huge impacts using artificial intelligence and robotics that are built off of foundational models that are true.
Let's stick with the leadership real quickly. In a couple hours, we'll have a new president in the United States, a new Congress. What can policymakers do to further this?
The big things that you're going to start seeing is there's going to be a way of understanding what's the underlying data sets that we're using and leveraging artificial intelligence for. Look, this president believes a lot in the power and importance of artificial intelligence. There's going to be warp speed initiatives that you're going to see pretty soon as it relates to ensuring that we are the leaders, we being the American economy, are the leaders in artificial intelligence. This is the way that all Western nations should be adopting this mentality. We need to be the leaders in this most important technology. But there's going to be a high scrutiny, and you're seeing this already, and you're seeing lawsuits everywhere with the leading AI companies, as it relates to the fidelity of data. This is why I come back to this idea. SaaS companies are dying. AI companies that don't have a core understanding and generate their own information and data at a high fidelity level are not going to exist.
It's a garbage in, garbage out.
Garbage in, garbage out, and the truth will set you free. There's going to be, and then you have to also understand, like there's, look, the folks on the ground. I talk to the facility leaders at the largest facilities in the world that are making things that we use every day, whether they be minerals or metals. And they're telling me, look, Gecko is the only company that offers artificial intelligence and robotics that actually impact how my facility works. And that's coming not just from the facility level and leaders level, but all the way down to the guys on the ground. And Silicon Valley has forgotten those folks. And it's, what's so exciting to me is that if you talk to any one of those facilities that we work with, the folks that are actually doing the jobs are the ones that are singing our praises the most. And so it's just, it ends up showing you that, if you design for the folks that are actually building things, eventually that will lead to the most impactful changes with these industries.
That's a great big picture to leave it on. Before we get the hook here at Axios, we have to end on one fun thing here. We're going to end on one Davos thing. You're a regular. You're back this year. We're the first day of a long week. Tell us how to Davos like a pro. What are the hot tips?
All right. Well, my tips maybe not the most agreeable, but the biggest tip I can leave you with is there is an incentive with Davos to always get invited back, which leads people to not speak truthfully about the perspectives and the people that they represent and the companies that they represent. Meaning that there is such an incentive to buy into the echo chamber, to genuflect, to ensure that you're not rocking the boat, and that not only is a bad strategy to live by, but it's also it actually is counter to the very reason why the World Economic Forum was created, improving the state of the world. How can you do that when you are more incentivized to make yourself look good, opposed to representing the things that you see that no one else can, the people that you're here to represent? And so my advice for you is speak the truth, even if it offends people.
My advice was going to be wear comfortable shoes, but that's a lot better call to arms and mine. Jake, thanks for being here. It's great seeing you. Thanks for Gecko for making this possible. Stick around. The conversation continues with my colleague, Alison.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. Hi, my name is Alison Snyder. I'm a managing editor here at Axios, and with me on stage, hi, we're going to keep going, is Peter Koerte. Nice to meet you. Thank you so much for doing this. He is Siemens AG's Chief Technology and Chief Strategy Officer and a member of the Managing Board. So thanks for doing this. We really appreciate it. And I think we're just going to dive right in. And my first question for you is, Siemens has sort of long been associated with transportation, healthcare, energy, and you're trying to make yourself over as an AI company. How are you going about doing that, and how important is that here in Davos this week?
Well, it really matters because if you think about what we need most is a good employment, a good productivity, good growth. And we believe that technology actually can bring that. Mm-hmm. So the manufacturing sector per se is really suffering from a shortage of labor. And no matter if you look in all the industries from chemicals to automotive, pharma, all the way, we see that the people are missing that really want to work in an attractive industry. Mm-hmm. And we believe that actually these are the true heroes if we give them the right technology in order to do so. So at Siemens, we've done electrification in the beginning, automation, but now we go on the next leap, which is all about digitalization, and of course digitalization infused by AI, because of all the data that comes from all the machines, from all the buildings, from all the trains that we run.
Jake just said something provocative twice about AI and SaaS companies going extinct if they do not have data. Siemens is data rich, right? You have 300,000 employees working all over the world. What is your challenge though with the data that you have? And yeah, start there.
No, it is fair. We know, in particular in the industrial space, we know that there are 17 billion devices that are actually receiving and sending data. 17 billion is twice as many people on this planet, which means fundamentally we don't have that issue that we are running out of data as training for the large language models. It's not the case in the industry. We have a different challenge, and that is data access, where truly companies have to trust each other to share the data so that you actually can make use out of it. And second is, of course, no hallucination or anything has to have happened. Because if you think about, if your AI gets you the tone of your email wrong, that's one thing. If you think about programming a machine, running a train, running a building, that's an entirely different thing. That's why we say industrial AI needs to be three things. It needs to be safe, it needs to be reliable, but most importantly, it needs to be trustworthy.
So Siemens, working with Microsoft, you've developed something that you call an industrial co-pilot. Can you take us, sorry you guys, I was not speaking into the mic. Okay, Siemens, in partnership with Microsoft, has developed an industrial AI sort of co-pilot. Can you take us to the factory floor, whether it be in, again, transportation, healthcare, somewhere? What does it look like? What is it doing? Who's working with it? And how's it going?
Yeah, if you today are an industrial engineer or somebody who has to actually set up these machines, you speak in a very specific language. And it just so happens that most of these people that are able to speak that language are just leaving the workforce because we see all the boomers going out and the younger generations coming in. And for them, that language doesn't mean anything. And they have no appetite to take it on. So Python and these kind of environments where languages where you can program in a state-of-the-art environment, that's what they're looking for. So we said, what if we could make it go away altogether and you just tell the machine of what actually needs to be done. So instead of writing automation code, you just tell the machine, the robot, to pick this glass and then put it over there, and then actually all the code is being generated. So that's for setting up the machines, which is one thing. But the harder part is we just learned, and I came across the statistic which really stayed with me, is that the average tenure of the factory worker level is dropping from 20 years down to 3 years, and that is only since 2019. So by and large, you have a lot of people that have no clue actually what's happening. So imagine you're working on a factory floor, and it's only you, nobody else, and the machine in front of you breaks down. But you're the guy who actually is responsible for making it run. What do you do? And if you don't reach your manager, anybody, your colleagues, then you have a big issue. So we decided that with industrial AI, we can actually democratize that knowledge. We can bring it, we can learn it, we can teach it, and then really tell the worker whenever that is needed, 24/7, even on a Sunday morning graveyard shift, to say, you know what, this machine is broken down because that ball bearing maybe was out of center, and so therefore you have to take the following 1, 2, 3, 4 steps. And that is fantastic because with that we can capture the knowledge as people exiting the workforce, and we can infuse the knowledge as people are coming on the shop floor.
And what is that in terms of productivity? What do you see productivity-wise, efficiency-wise? What's the payback for you?
So far it's early, as with most of these AI applications. We know that we have about 100 companies that are working with it right now. We see that for sure the time it takes to troubleshoot any kind of failure is much, much faster. The quality of it is faster. But we are still lagging these large-scale studies, obviously, that gives you the productivity increase of whatever % that is.
But at the end of the day, actually recently I think there was a WEF report that found that 41% of businesses said they were going to cut jobs because of AI. So there's a real threat to workers. How do you how do you balance that with the optimization that you're trying to get, and what does it mean for them?
Yeah, the companies that we work with is actually, it's quite the opposite. So the report I know is that until 2030, we're going to miss 85 million people in factory jobs or in worker jobs, so industry jobs, which means that we have a shortage of labor. And it's not so much about the fact that AI is replacing them, because we believe that actually it augments every factory worker. So we give that knowledge to the people that are coming online. And we haven't seen that yet in terms of that threat in particular, where people say, you know what, the AI is going to take my job away.
You don't see it?
I don't believe it, and I don't believe it for the very reason. If you think about, let's say, 20 years ago with robots, it was the same conversation. We talked about robots being on the shop floor and taking all the factory workers away, and then we have a dark factory. Run around the factories I know are definitely different than they used to be 20, 30 years, but there are still people around, except that, of course, the qualification has changed, and that is really now going into the areas where you need problem solving and all the skills we as humans are good at, as opposed to the repetitive tasks, which obviously the robots, and to me AI is nothing else than robot in the digital age, is really doing.
So when you develop something like the industrial co-pilot, are workers at the table? Are they involved in those conversations? What's the input that they give?
It's both. So we co-developed it, of course, with the data in particular from the shop floor, and therefore also we needed to know in which environments they were being created. But then also now, as we roll this out, we continuously refine that. For example, the question of that human-machine interface, so how do you actually consume the data? Where do you consume the data is a very important part. So do you go to your smartphone? Do you go to the machine itself? Will we eventually see those classes, right? That actually will tell you, you're looking at the machine, and then, of course, AR, VR, just prompting gives you the advice of what to do. These are the kind of things where it's very fluent, right? So we just launched it half a year ago, but that is all happening as we speak.
What do you need to, I guess, or what's needed for industrial AI to sort of fulfill its promise? What's needed technically in terms of AI advances?
So technically, the most important part, it comes back to it's the data. It's not the models. It's not the compute power. It really is the data. And for the data, we need to have high quality data. That means the edge cases, so that we have that ability to guarantee for a very reliable system. And that is, of course, after all, something that there's circumstances you haven't envisioned for to make it really industrial grade and hard. We have those operations. For example, we have streetcars. So streetcars that actually drive autonomously, and they're AI powered. So there, we really took it all the way to the end, but it takes longer usually in industry than it takes in the B2C space.
Are you seeing a flywheel yet between that data and the AI that you're developing? Are you starting to actually see it?
In certain domains, so wherever you have, for example, on the automation side, with automation code, this is where it starts. The next one that we see is on design data, which is fascinating, because if you think about designers, so engineers sitting in front of a CAD tool, you usually start with a blank sheet of paper. But what if you actually, A, take the libraries, but B, if you tell the system actually how can we further optimize it by reducing weight, reducing stiffness, whatever that is. And so actually the AI in behind does it, and we see these communities, now they're coming together, they're getting increasingly excited, and we see that, yes, but early stage.
I was like, don't drink that. So I want to switch gears for a second. There's geopolitical tensions around the development of AI are ratcheting up, right? There's tariffs, export controls, political personal relationships, talent flows. What impact do you see that having on your development of your AI and sort of deployment of it in the next 4 years?
All right. Well, we are lucky if we can predict it for the next year, because regulation is rampant, and we of course know that. By the way, regulation is happening everywhere in Europe, in America, in China. So we always say regulate as little as needed when it comes down to the industrial space, for the very reason that our customers are completely self-sufficient in a way that they are grown up and they can make their decisions, and we have contracts in between that govern, of course, the services we provide to our customers. So therefore, it's a different conversation than you have the conversation with consumers, which obviously is a different way. We, of course, follow all the regulations that are out there, but truth be told, it becomes more complex because you need to have a lot of people that understand the regulations, what it means if you want to make that product available in geography A, B, or C. And second, of course, sometimes that means that you have to retrain the model on local foundational models or even redeploy it on local clouds, which means, again, it drives up cost and therefore it drives down the scalability of the product. So generally speaking, the less the better, but we of course understand that everybody wants to make sure that AI is safe and reliable, as I said earlier.
So do you think it'll affect the pace of it?
It depends on where regulators are going. Right now, we clearly can see in Europe it is slowing down. In the United States, we shall see today and in the next 4 years to come, obviously. And then, of course, there's China, where, of course, in China, AI is really adopted at a rapid pace because they understood that AI can be the next frontier for leveraging productivity much, much faster than anybody else. And if you have a very large, of course, home market, like in China, like the United States, of course, that is something that you have to leverage.
I met with someone this morning who was telling me that they walked through a factory in China recently, and it was a half a kilometer walk, and they didn't see a single person. There was no employees, all automated. I mean, is that the goal?
It is hard to say whether there is no person at all. It really depends on what you're manufacturing. So, for example, in the battery space, battery manufacturing space, which becomes extraordinarily highly automated, but then there's a lot of jobs after all that are required in order to do that, like packaging, like food and beverage, where this will stay quite a while.
We're out of time, but I do have, as Nick said, we'd like to end on one fun thing. This is not your first Davos, correct?
It is my first Davos.
It is your
actually.
first
It is
Davos?
great being with you,
yes. Oh my gosh, I just assumed. Okay. What are you looking for? Oh man, okay. So what do you, how did
Okay,
you?
no,
yeah, I know. It's a warmer Davos. What are you doing what's one thing you're looking forward to doing that doesn't involve all these people and just sort of being here in the Alps?
Actually, I'm going to take a lot of great pictures and I'm going to send them around. And of course, feeling bad about it not being on the snow-topped mountains and not being down here.
Thank you so much for being here. I hope you enjoy your week then. Jeez.
Thank you, Alison.
Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Please stick around. There's going to be another event this afternoon. So if you want to take a break and come back, we'll be here. Thank you.